Power Hunger, Why Evil Takes the Prize. The story of Steve Rauchi starts in the Schenectady School District in New York City as a janitor. But what is interesting about Mr. Rauchi is that he is not your average janitor, he was a power hungry janitor. And in the next few minutes, you will know how. Now, Steve Rauchi wasn't content with just being a janitor. No, no, no. The cleaning job didn't appeal to him and didn't seem to suit his overt sense of uniqueness, according to him. Rather, what actually appealed to him was to climb the power ladder so that he could, guess what, be powerful. And insanely determined to his goal, he went on to craft this grandiose plot of replacing the district's energy czar. And for those of you who don't know, in the US, the district energy czar is the one who is tasked with saving money by reducing the electricity bills, aka cutting down on energy. Now, the energy czar of the district at the time was just doing his usual job, cutting energy, saving money. Except he did not know the functionalities of the software that control the electricity usage of the district. So, guess what? Our determined Rauchi goes on to learn the whole electricity software and then kindly offers the energy czar to allow him to control the software. And now, without a second thought, energy czar agrees. He thought that Steve would actually help him save more time and save more energy. Well, saving more time was a yes, but saving more energy? Fuck no. This man went on to ramp up the energy usage of the whole district by switching off the stadium lights at odd times during the nights or consuming energy during public vacations. And at the end, his grand plan turned out to be a huge success when the authorities fired his colleagues and gave Rauchi the position of the energy czar. Now, as soon as he got this power high of being the energy czar, he switched from carelessly letting electricity of the whole school district on to being paranoid about electricity consumption. He went off to cut off the cords of heaters in the classroom, didn't allow what he called illegal electrical machinery to run in the school, and literally gave a death stare to the ones who tried to break his rules. But no, this is not even it. His true colors actually started to shine through his veil of sanity when some of his employees denounced him as he was planning to run for the union president. And because apparently he was being suspected of being a psychopath. And unlike any other ordinary person, Rauchi being Rauchi did not reject these allegations. But he found out who wrote the letter, crossing him, went to their home in the middle of the night, and graffitized the word rat on their doors. Now, still not content, the next day he forced his subordinates to drive in the school van to their houses and see the word rat written there. Well, this is still not the craziest thing he did. He had a picture of the Godfather in his office, believing he is the real world manifestation of it. At one time, he even forced his employee to send a picture of his girlfriend, which he later pasted in the office with unspeakable captions. And when all of this got out of control, people who started to raise their voices and cross him found their tires slashed or packed with explosive. And after a major turn of events, Steve Rauchi was arrested on 20th February 2009 with explosives and night goggles found in his office. So, this story of Steve Rauchi would outmatch a lame psychological thriller, according to you. But according to me, his story was just of an unsuccessful psychopath, one who failed to maintain power. Now, why I say unsuccessful? because the successful ones can actually end up achieving and maintaining power. But before we move on, if I go on to ask you, who are you, what would you say? If you are like any other sane person, you would say your name. I am this. But think about it. Are you really your name? If I say I'm Jim Gorgon, well, Jim and Gorgon are just two words made up of 9 letters in total. If I say I'm this physical structure I see in the mirror every morning, but I'm not my body, it is just a well organized flesh arranged on a skeleton. I do not refer to it as am hand, am eyes, am brain, or am body called sick this morning. I say it is my body, my hand, my brain. If I say I'm a male, that's just another way of identifying my biological features. If I say I'm my age is just a number. And the same thing applies to you as well. You are not your name, you are not your body, you are not your age, you are not your gender. If someone makes a clone of you and gives it your name, would it be you? No, right? That would be a duplicate of you, but not you. So we may even go further asking, what are you? And if you are not what you supposed you were, are you even anything? Get the answer to these mind boggling questions by buying our ebook Psychology of You for just $1 through the link in the caption. So now, let's get started. We've all seen throughout history and even in the modern world, power requires a high cost to be paid by the ones who behold it, which most of the time doesn't seem appealing to ordinary people. And in fact, if you want to test it for yourself, ask yourself that do I want power? Do I want to bear the burden of being responsible of the lives that will be influenced by my possession of power? Do I have the capacity to deal with the dilemma power brings with it? And for most of you, the answer will be no. Because who wants to struggle so much in a system that is corrupt, dishonest, and even life threatening? But for those of you saying yes, I will assume either you cannot comprehend the cost of being in a position of high power like a president, or you are a rare specimen of some specific traits which I will be disclosing soon. Now, if you tend to witness this history of power, we also come across a unique phenomenon of the self selection effect. The self selection effect says that power hungry people are often better in the power game. They succeed more effectively in achieving and maintaining power at the highest echelons. So, in other words, they don't have to pave their path towards power, but the path itself is paved for them. A self fulfilling prophecy. And I'm sure your mind will be immediately screening images of Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and Saddam Hussein being the archetype of this effect. But in reality, when we actually open our eyes, we find this to be valid everywhere, even today. So, yes, the people who end up leading or controlling us in the modern world are the result of the very same effect that caused the emergence of Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and Saddam Hussein, just constrained with more democratic rules. And there are two key reasons why we end up with people who disappoint us in the high chair, made with police, politicians, ministers, or presidents every time. The first point is A. All power hungry people have a set of common traits that persuades them to pursue power, unlike the common man and woman. And B, the system is flawed to the point it ends up serving the power hungry, not overseeing them. Now, before we come how our system are inherently broken for actually ending up with the right people on the right chairs, let us immerse ourselves into the psychology of the absolute corrupts who shape power absolutely. The reason why the hunger for power emerges more justly in so rare amounts of people is that they acquire a rare set of traits known as the dark triad traits. So, the dark triad traits have three components to them: Machiavellianism, that is, the end or the outcome justifies the means taken to achieve it. For example, it is the employee who manipulates his or her co workers to get an edge over them for the upcoming promotion. Second trait is narcissism, which is the grand ego that the world revolves around you and you are some sort of special component to it. For example, the person who wants everybody to like them. And psychopathy, the antisocial tendencies in a person that are complemented by lack of empathy and deviance from social conformity, faked with a superficial charm. Now, great example of psychopathic traits are most of the serial killers who show no remorse for their actions. Now, Steve Rauchi was a Machiavellian narcissistic psychopath. And many world leaders, especially from countries with high levels of corruption, are likely to be so as well. And I will not name them and start a controversy here. Moreover, these dark triad traits may not be limited to just these people at the higher echelons of power, but it could be your boss, it could be your co worker, your municipality officer, your bureaucrats, and even you yourself. So, if you want to test out that your measurement of in the dark triad test, then I have a link pasted down in the description. Check it out right now and test yourself for the dark triads. So now having the ability to wield power anyhow is a trait, but power hungry people competing for wielding power is a flaw. And that is a flaw in the system. So let us now dive into how the system itself rolls the red carpet for the evils. So I would like to introduce you to the concept of this flawed system by asking you a question so that you could figure it out yourself what I mean. Now, have you ever heard about an individual who is a software engineer at an X company committing some massive fraud? Rarely would you would have seen a software engineer or just a normal employee committing fraud that had taken millions and billions out of a company. Because to hire any employee, there is a specific resume required. The person needs to be interviewed about their traits, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they will do for the company, and how will they progress. If the individual works as per the expectations, they are promoted. If not, then they are eliminated. But do you hear about politicians, ministers, CEOs committing power scandals? Of course you would have. If not in your region or in your country, then surely in other regions and other countries. Because the only requirement for someone running for a political office or board of directors in a company is to have the favor of the people. And that's it. You are honored with political power. So, do you see the problem here? Ordinary people like you and me are required to go through a screening process while applying for a job only to manage a company data, while people who are granted the power of affecting millions of lives just require public validation. Now, how is it easy to gain approval of the public, you may ask? Well, to prove you wrong, I would say that not only are power hungry people able to present a facade for the public itself makes it easier for them to exploit its own cognitive biases. Because most of the time, believe me or not, it is not the promises or the ideals or morals that we tend to seek in the leader first, but it is how that person looks. It is the appearance of the leaders that matters, that plays a large role in electing that leader. And this is unfortunately due to our evolutionary mechanisms, because we tend to create an archetypal image of a leader in our minds, which most of the time is that of a strong, bold male. And that is why most of our world leaders also end up being those who look like strong, bold males. In fact, when an experiment was conducted with some adults who were asked to pick the winner and loser of the election by just seeing their picture and not knowing any details, most of them chose the right winner and the right loser. So we can see that public validation itself can be easily manipulated into into their own favor by our Machiavellian narcissistic psychopaths. Now the question to ask here is that what do we do about it? How can we fix the system in such a way that the right people sit on the right chairs? To answer this question, we need to imagine that the worst possible person is running for the political office and then frame a system that prevents that person running for the political office. So, the first logical thing to do that would come in mind is to advertise power in such a way that it is attractive to the ordinary people. Now, if positions like that of a president is not attractive, but at least for policing, government officers, and for bureaucracy, these positions of power can be made attractive by advertising power. Now, even then, if the power hungry people make it to the political run despite of these attractive advertisements for these positions of power, they should be screened or at least given a psychological test, so that if there is a red alarm and the information is covered, then voters will make a better decision in the re-election. But this is not even it. The effects of power have actually been proven to change our psychology and brain chemistry, which shifts our ways of thinking and acting as well. And as a result, we require more of an oversight to outmatch these detriments of being in power, of coming to the power. And one of the ideas that has been highlighted by the author Brian Klaas in his book Corruptible is of shadow bodies of power that oversee the real bodies of power. Now, for example, there is a shadow board of directors in a company that has randomly selected employees who are experienced at the ground level to make a decision based on the same information given to the real board of directors. Now, if the real board of directors say take a bad decision, the shadow board would be able to counteract this with the relevant decisions simply because they are these anonymous employees of the same company who are wary of the impact ruthless decision making of the real board of directors could actually have on the company. So ultimately, the people who end up winning the power play are decided by the quality of the system. Rotten systems attract rotten people, and good systems attract good people. Now, let's talk about the power dilemma. Now, we have covered this point. To change the systems of power, we need to make ordinary people find power attractive. However, it only stands true to an extent. Now, we can make power attractive, we can make it attractive or appealing to be a police officer or a government executive. But in positions of power where the choice you make does not lie between good and bad, but between the worst and less bad, where whatever you do, you will kill people, and where your alternatives are by default in the negative zone, you find yourself in a dilemma which does not at all seem appealing to anybody. And it is here that we also must question ourselves about how we judge and evaluate the decisions taking place at the highest echelons of power by the most powerful people. Now, calling out any leader for making horrific decisions during horrific times is a stupid statement. Because what is actually viable to do there is to question whether the actions of the leaders were relevant compared to the alternatives. Did the leader choose the least evil decision? Or did he or she ruthlessly commit an atrocity? And if they did the best possible thing they could have, given the information and the uncertainty at the time, we should appraise them, not abuse them. And one such example of praise is that of Winston Churchill. In World War II, the British had cracked the Nazi Enigma codes, which allowed them to understand what the Nazis were communicating within themselves. Now, however, the challenge that stands here is not letting the Nazis know that the British have cracked these codes. Because if the Nazis became aware of this fact, they are sure to change the codes again. But what makes this challenge even more interesting is when they got to know about credible information about an Australian ship that was going to be fired upon by the Nazi jets. The British knew that when and where the Nazis would sink this boat and how many lives it would cost. And despite having the chance to warn them, Churchill decided not to. Because if he did, then the ship would be saved and the Nazis would gain suspicion of their codes being cracked. So he stayed silent. And when the firing actually took place on the ship, the blood lay in the hands of Churchill. Now, even though he caused these deaths on the Australian ship, he prevented many more by not giving a clue to the Nazis about their secret. He made an impossible choice where whatever he was to do, he would kill people. So he made the choice where the least lives were lost, and that is why we praise him today. Thus, the actual measure of the relevance of someone in power is not what good they do, but what bad do they bring.